Hey guys, it's Matt. This is not an AI person. This is not an AI generated image from Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, or other, nor is this an AI voiceover. I'm going to start my presentations about twice a month with that. And although many of you are saying, well, how can we possibly tell the difference? It's 2025. I'll tell you how you can tell the difference. Because it might only be one time during this entire presentation. It might be two or three times. But at some point, I'm going to pull off a joke that works. The AI can't do that. Nor does it make human-type mistakes. At some point, I'll stutter, I'll make a mistake in my verbiage or in my diction, whatever that means. The AI can't do that. It doesn't know how to. Maybe in a few months or a few weeks, but not right now. So for now, if I point these key differences out between the real Matt and the AI Matt that the trolls will someday use to discredit me, if I ever come forth to you and just say a bunch of ridiculous things that goes against everything I've ever mentioned in this Amish classroom, then you know it's not me, and you know it's not Joe Rogan. Anyway, have you seen The Internship with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn? There's a very funny scene during the orientation where they are asked questions about their conduct of what they're going to go through in the internship, and they have paddles, and they answer green with yes and red with no, and what do you think, class? Taking food home from the office, or Google, they all get this free food all day long. It's all free. Lunch, whatever, it's all free. Taking food home from the office. And Vince, they want to take food home, of course. So Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, they say, yes, I have a white paddle. I have for today's exercise, which will be a graduation exercise for truthers to potentially get from your middle school classroom to high school. That's what today's video is going to be about. An examination for your graduation from middle school to high school using these paddles. Anyway, taking food home from the office. And Vince Vaughn, of course, and Owen Wilson, oh yeah, definitely. Of course, the rest of the class knows not to do it, and they raise the red paddle. Another one was dating another worker here. And, of course, they want to date. What if it's an older worker, more mature, that's the head of a different department? That's not okay? Anyway, it's a funny scene. The internship is scene by scene. There's 10 scenes that are pretty funny. The rest is this pretty bad movie. But anyway, we're going to do this today. I'm going to ask to get the truthers that think they're ready to graduate from middle school to the high school. I'm going to ask a series of questions. Now, I've only thought of a few of those questions. I'm going to need to do a break at the end of each segment to prepare the next question. So there's going to be a lot of cuts and breaks in this presentation. But again, I appreciate the old guard want to be here to proctor the exam, or to monitor the exam, or to monitor the comments. I appreciate the old guard being here. I told the old guard if you had fields to clear, you didn't have to be here. You just sit in the front rows anyway and sleep. You know more than I do about most of this stuff. But we have a lot of middle schoolers here, and in the back, the spitballers in the elementary school. If the elementary school spitballers want to try to answer some of these questions, it might get you a little bit quicker into the middle school, like a fast track for smart people. So let me prepare my first question, and then I'll be right back, and we'll do each question in similar fashion. So in summary, guys, most of these test questions are aimed at the 6th grade truther through the 8th grade truther. When I went to high school, which was called Upper Merion Area High School in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. How strange is that name to anybody that didn't grow up there? King of Prussia. It is normal to us. You're kind of born there. And you say to somebody from Indiana, I'm from King of Prussia. What? It's the weirdest thing they ever heard. It's just normal to us. Okay. If you're a 6th grade truther, 7th or 8th grade, and you want to try to get to high school, in my Upper Merion, the high school was separated from the middle school between 8th and 9th grade. So if you want to graduate and get to the high school, which will start you off at 9th grade, and Czar will help too, then anybody at, say, 6th through 8th grade can participate in this exam. If certain exam questions come up that could potentially get the 12th grade truther into the graduate level, or even some of the spitballers, the 4th, 3rd, or 2nd graders, we don't have many here. They don't like this sort of channel. They don't like this. We don't have many spitballers in the back anymore because they don't like personal responsibility. They like blaming someone else for their ills and their failures and how difficult this world is. And they don't like personal responsibility, as Frank points out to me many times. And most importantly, they're addicted to fear. They want end of the world videos. Oh, excuse me, Zara, and don't step on the keyboard, okay? They want end of the world videos. Can you see me? Zara, no thanks. Question number 1, inspired by a comment on the last video, and I get a comment like this about once a week. It was every single video 4 or 5, 6 years ago, but most people have basically moved away. Whatever they keep pushing in terms of this subject matter, they know is not going to rub off on me, but nevertheless, it still comes about once a week. So the J people that live in a certain part of the Middle East, which some say encompasses the Levant, I can't be too specific. We say the term Israel. Those people are the cause and root of all ill. Those people are the cause of all evil in the world. And if they could just be dealt with, or say rounded up, or put in jail, or whatever might have happened in the past, if those people could be dealt with, then all the world would be all better again. So we need to blame those people and keep calling them out. No. See, they may be part of this machine called Not Milk, but one of several thousand parts. If you want to blame them as the final source of evil, you're lost. In fact, if you thought you were a 7th grader, I'm demoting you down to about 3rd grade. There's a lot of things we could call Not Milk. The Christian calls Satan, the evil of this world. Many different moving parts, many different types of components, potentially many different types of spiritual entities. So to keep blaming that group, they certainly may be part of it, but to put that as the boss level, the final bad guy, is ignorance and in the extreme. So if that was you, demote yourself down to the elementary school, please. Next question. If there's a major conflict in the world, or a war, or a situation where tens of thousands of people are harmed or worse, a war in the Middle East, whatever it may be, Syria, what happened in Afghanistan, Iraq, that's so corporate interests can get in there and make money. For example, with Iraq, it was about getting the oil. In Syria, it was about a pipeline. These same type of truthers will say many things the Not Milk does is actually because of a money laundering scheme. So the root of it, in many cases, is corporate greed and money. No. So the Not Milk don't need no money. The Not Milk is in a spiritual battle against you. It can take and get whatever it wants through the Federal Reserve systems around the world, which are all tied together in the same Whopper supercomputer. Nothing is about money. They might feed their corporate interest money because those middle-level managers, those lower-level minions and creeps, need to be rewarded with some sort of remuneration, whatever that means. Those lower level minions don't just vampirically suck loosh, probably. They think what they're after is magenta speedboats and a second home, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th homes, mansions, having women on the side and men on the side, whatever it may be, and gigantic Bentley cars, and they need to be rewarded with that bullshit. So yes, the corporate interest and the money is involved in many of these schemes, but as you don't think as a 7th or 8th grader trying to get to high school that's one of the primary motivations of Not Milk, do you? No. If you got this wrong, demote yourself down to kindergarten, please. Next question for the middle school truther trying to graduate. An endless focus by you on all the evil deeds being done, on all the evil doers, an endless examination of all the bad things they're doing, even calling it out without seeing the big picture, actually is you empowering the bad guy, even in calling it out. I'll give you a moment to think about this one. Are you in any way, by calling out the evil, empowering the evil? Yes, you are. Now, we can't ignore what's happening. But without seeing the big picture as to who you really are, how necessary you are to what we call Not Milk, many believe it wouldn't even exist on its own. First rule of the Kabbalion, all is mind. It needs you. It needs your energy. It needs many things we might not even be aware of to survive. It's a role player here. So if you only go halfway and just point out the evil and try to wake up Aunt Ginny and Uncle Harry, look what they're doing to us, look what they're doing to us, pointing out the evil, look what the controllers and the elite, and then giving them words of praise, just pointing out the trick and the evil being done and the ruse and how they're screwing everybody. If you stop there, it's not enough. You have to see the big picture. That is the first step, pointing it out. But you have to see how powerful you are and what role you play actually in sustaining the not milk and providing it sustenance. So the answer to this question is yes. Next question. Now, to start all of this, I should have had you state your name, like an Animal House. I state your name, and they repeat. I state your state your name. Do hereby pledge. Oh, sorry. I'll ask you now to state your name. Go ahead. Go ahead. Now, you have a variety of different types of documentation to prove who you are. Say if you change your address and need to put the electric bill in your name, you have a driver's license, social security card, a birth certificate. The question is that you? The name, your exact name on all those legal documents, is that you? Now this should be easy, even to the fifth grade truther. Is that you, that name on all those documents? No, it's not you at all. It's what's called the straw man. It's a legal fiction that this not milk needs to work through to get you, the real spiritual being, to willfully engage inside of its sick slave system. Soon to be replaced, the straw man, with the digital twin. And it'll do business through the digital twin and convince you that you are the digital twin. Now, albeit it's hard to remove ourselves entirely from what we call the straw man at this point, unless you are one of the few people willing to go to the top of a mountain and live in a cardboard box, try to dig holes and look for water or something like that. We have to use a driver's license if we want to. We can't just say, most of us are not in a situation where we can just say, fuck this system, and walk out. You can't do it. Okay, we're kind of stuck with a driver's license and having to prove legal residence and things like that. But the idea is to, first off, to know it's not you, and to, via affirmation, state from time to time, that name in all caps, that son of a beach, that's not me. It says Matt McKinley, but that's the straw man, the legal fiction that it wants me to believe I am, so it can work through the straw man to get to me. It's a very complicated topic. The sovereign citizen types are more expert at it than I am, but it's a very important question to ask anybody that thinks they can graduate into high school truth. As a final reminder, this is for junior high and middle school level truth researchers trying to get to high school. I know there's 10th and 11th grade truth researchers here going, Matt, these questions are rather rudimentary. They are for you. I'm not going to ask this group questions about the need for horseshit like initiation. We're going to save that for later. That's not appropriate. Horseshit and an in-depth study of horseshit like initiation. I love that word. Oh, I can't do it myself. I need this. I need to join this group. I love that. Yeah. That's not for this level. It might be rudimentary to you. I appreciate you being here and not being out clearing fields. Next question. To progress through the grades and to eventually one day graduate, is it important for we as truth researchers to understand their symbols? The bad guy, the not milk, symbolism, their gematria, their shrines, their gods, their sigils. Is it important we understand that in order to graduate ourselves? No, it's not. It's not important. Well, Matt, certainly we need you to understand what the 33 means to them. And certainly we need to understand what the capstone is on the back of the dollar bill. No. See, all that horse shit is for them. Okay, there's certain things they may give away as Humpty Dumptys and stuffed lemons from time to time that this reality in a way has to tell us a little bit about ourselves for those that care to notice. But in general, studying all they do, let's break down the Super Bowl halftime show. There's gematria, there's symbols and sigils and all this stuff all over the back of the dollar bill and all this stuff. We get, their use of the pentagram in the layout of Washington D.C. And we don't need to know none of it. That's in some creepy way for them. It's a different spiritual entity than you are. That should have been the final test question. Is it a different spiritual entity than you are? Yes. Not milk. Well, what is it? Tony called it a sequential. We don't know what it is, but it's not the same issue. They need all that horse shit. Certain pursuits, like the way Levet studies the ancient history of the alchemical symbols. That it's okay. I mean, I still don't think an in-depth study of that is necessary for what you need to do for yourself. But it's not, alchemical symbols is part of the natural world. The four elements are part of the natural world. That's not milk. Not milk uses that, but it's not milk it's not milk in and of itself. So anyway, we no reason to go on and on. We used to think it was very important to study what they do and all that they did and it's not. It's not. In fact, that is part of the trick to lure us back into the weeds. We don't need that shit. They do. The next yes/no question, because we are using paddles, so there's no opportunity for a free form answer. The next yes/no question. There are different types of spiritual entities here on this place called Earth. Or you might disagree and believe the old adage you may have heard somewhere that all men are created equal, at least spiritually. Believe that. Or there are different entities here, all mixing together on this place called Earth. Yes. And we have different theories as to what may be an NPC or what this entity is or the role of this, but we know for sure there are different types of spiritual entities here. And that leads to a further conversation about how many different types are there. There might not be 3, there might be 4 or 5, because we know for a fact that what Tony called the sequential, the Melvin of the Belinda and Melvin P. Gates Foundation, that sort of entity, what is a Bezos entity or a Santa Claus Schwab or a Lady Gaga or a Christine Lagarde, we know for a fact that those things, whatever they are, whatever they may be, are not the same spiritually as you are. So the answer to this question is yes, there are different types here. And as far as we're concerned, that's the best news of all time. Now, we may have all come from the same exact place, the initial well source. That's not appropriate for a junior high test trying to get into high school. We'll leave that for another time. We may all end up in the same place. I know nobody wants to think that Melvin of the Belinda and Melvin P. Gates Foundation could someday be the same as you. End up the same, and we came from the same place, we may end up in the same place, but that's not the purpose of a junior high school test. Here and now, we know that this group of creatures, whatever they are, although they seem to be in power here, and they have high-rise buildings, skyscrapers, magenta speedboats, and Bentleys. They seem to be in control and in power here, and for most of the metrics of this world, they are, and that's fine. That's fine. They can be a big fish in a small pond. That's wonderful for them. I congratulate them on the enormity of their success here. But in terms of what really counts, spiritual growth, not so good. Not so good, Belinda and Melvin P. Gates Foundation. Not doing so well. That's the rule of opposites here. So the answer to this question, yes. Yes, there are different types of entities here. And that's the best news of all time to the spiritual being of what you are, the level you are. You're low here, which per the rule of opposites means where it matters, you're much greater than these sorts of creatures. Next question. This reality will quite often leave spiritual clues embedded or slightly hidden for the spiritual being to find that helps the spiritual being navigate the journey, both in understanding who it really is and what it's supposed to be doing in this lifetime. The reality itself leaves positive spiritual clues. Yes or no? Yes. Now, you've heard me call them stuffed Lenins or Humpty Dumptys. And by the way, if you're in 7th grade or 8th grade and you're taking the test, you're going to need to score this on your own honestly and legitimately without a proctor. And I'll take your word for it for where you missed or got test questions correct. Now, yes, the reality leaves these clues all over the place, whether it be right in the Humpty Dumpty idiotic rhyme, sat on a wall, had a great fall. You can't look to king's horses and king's men. You need to look to yourself, whether it be in that or in incredible spiritual messages that come through your favorite songs or movies that are very positive, even if they came from Hollywood in some instances, like Dances with Wolves. So the reality, per the rules here, has to do this. So I don't want to stray and get into a prison planet discussion, but if it's a jail and a prison planet and you're screwed and there's jailers and wardens and you ain't getting out and you dress like a gigolo, would reality have all these thousands of spiritual messages that are very positive and uplifting in thousands of different places if this was a prison planet and a jail? I don't think so, but that's not really appropriate for this level test question. The answer was yes. And if you're scoring on your own, be honest. Next question. The Knotlk and its creeps and minions are always looking for ways to cull huge portions of the human population, to have 500 million to a billion people just go away, to make them go kaput, to do a mass you-know-what. They're always looking for ways to wipe out. No. Oh, here we go. Is anybody yelling Deagle.com? I mean, this is a retard test. If you ever sent me information about Deagle.com, you failed a retard test. And then here we go. Is anybody the old truth factions from 2020 and 2021? Are you going to send me any emails and nasty grams about using the word genocide? The old man in a chair? Do you know what the word genocide means? There were a lot of adverse events in 2021 with the renting of the Carl Weathers movie Action Jacksonation. There was a lot of people that knew somebody that went kaput or had all sorts of problems, no doubt about it. If you put some sort of weird chemical cocktail messing with the RN whatever into over 4 billion people's arms, there's going to be some adverse events. Think everything should be okay from that? But it's not genocide. You know what the word genocide means? It was like, did you see Avengers Endgame or whatever, where Thanos snapped his fingers and half the people just went away? That's more like that word. All right. So adverse events, or if your Aunt Ginny knows somebody that went kaput, that's not genocide. Still waiting for the apology of the old man in a chair disciples. So the question was, Knotlk's always looking for ways to wipe out huge portions. No, sorry, they're not. See, they need us. So if you're a farmer, does a farmer need his crop at all? Does he just go every day stomping all over the crop, pouring different chemicals? Oh, you got some? Can I get some Agent Orange? I'm gonna pour it on my crop. Does the farmer want to wipe out its crop? Does the cattle rancher that has the thousands of head of cattle in Texas somewhere, does it just want to wipe it out? And the last time I posed that, somebody actually had the gall in a comment that said, well, Matt, the cattle rancher eventually takes them to slaughter to make burgers. Really? Well, yeah, because that's part of the process of how the cattle rancher earns its money, makes money, and then it replaces with new cattle. It just doesn't go destroy the cattle for no reason. I can't believe somebody left me that comment. Matt, you're being awful condescending. Yeah, I'm laying it on pretty thick. Sorry. So the cattle rancher doesn't, if it needs its cattle, right, doesn't want to wipe out. So do you think the Knotlk doesn't need us? The dark part of reality needs the real spiritual being to survive, not just for its sustenance and food. So why would it want to wipe out huge portions of its food supply, whether that be energy or other? And the other is that you might have heard this saying before. Matt, I don't really like your condescending attitude in this video. Yeah, I'm laying it on pretty thick. Sorry. You may have heard this before. The proof is in the pudding. I know there's been wars and world wars, but do you think the Knotlk has ever had the opportunity to cull huge portions of the population, whether it be in the last 50 years with its high tech or over the last 400 years, 500 years? Did it ever have the opportunity to wipe out huge portions like Thanos snapping his fingers with the Infinity Stones? Yeah, it had its chance. The proof is in the pudding. It hasn't done it yet. It wages world war for a lot of different reasons. That it does wipe out a lot of people, but it's not the culling that the truth movement has talked about. In the 5th and 6th grade and 7th grade truthers. Can't say 5th and 6th, and then people, that's the 11. He's trying to drop the 11 to his secret society friends. Have to say 5th, 6th, and 7th graders. I'm trained myself so the trolls have nothing to latch on to. Anybody in the truth community want to? Are you really? If you're trying to right now get me a message, and I can hear you coming through the ether before I've even uploaded about the TED Talk with Bill Gates. In order to get carbon emission down to zero in this equation, it's P for population times output times manufacturing equals carbon. To get that down, I don't know exactly what the damn formula was, sorry. In order to get that down to zero, one of these things has to, in order to get carbon down, one of these things has to go to zero, and implied P, the population number. Anybody want to tell me about that? Through the ether, even before I've uploaded. If you wanted just a moment ago to tell me about that TED Talk, then you failed this test. Even though you failed this one, you failed the entire test. Do not pass go and go back to first grade truth. Next question. This is more free form. You'll need to take notes before you answer, and then it will eventually evolve into a yes/no question. Which of the intellectual classics and from which great masters, philosophers, or authors are worth reading, in your opinion? Would Aristotle be worth reading in terms of the Greek classics and not Socrates or Plato? Would Nietzsche be worth reading but not Kant or Schopenhauer? Would Madame Blavatsky be worth reading and not Alice Bailey? See, you tell me what, or any of them worth reading? No, it's all a gigantic intellectual jack-off session circle jerk. Now, if you read Kant, there's some truth there, talking about the moral man, and there's some truth, no doubt. You can get little bits and pieces, but in terms of understanding, what about yourself? Understand yourself in your place here as a spiritual being, and the basic things we need to do in part 2, the work, as we move through the short amount of time we have in the limited number of decades. Is there anything in? That's why I call it I shouldn't just give away the answer. That's why I called the Philosophers series. I guess I already did tell you the answer. No, it's all a gigantic. It's positioned as intellectual greatness, but what it is, is a gigantic intellectual circle jerk off. And the final question is, and I remind you, this is worth 40% of your grade. It's very, very difficult to pass this examination without getting the final test question correct. In terms of the truth researcher's examination of the outside world, is there anything considered of great or high importance that has ever been figured out? That has ever been figured out. Now, no need to answer yet. Let me explain a few things. Let's just say all these structures that shouldn't be able to be built, whether they're inherited or has all that been figured out? The role of Atlantis or Lemuria, the pyramids or any other structures, how have they been built? Has that been figured? How exactly the government pulled off whatever they presented to the American public for whatever it was for regarding Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo missions? Was it to study the sun? Did anybody go anywhere? In what area of outside study, of which there's tens of thousands of things have been studied, right down to the foolish, right down to Loch Ness Monster, Nessie, our underwater ally, right through things that you consider of prime importance. If any part of the outside world has any bit of it ever been figured out by truth research? No. Not one bit of it has ever been figured out across all pursuits through the entire breadth and depth of our truth research. Now, does that tell you should keep doing it? Or does it tell you should pull back and worry about yourself? I guess I don't really need to answer that one. Nothing's ever been figured out, but people keep doing it. Isn't that the definition of insanity? It's close. Thanks for listening.